Oh, thank God. You're alive. Gary approached me, his eyes misty with tears. Apparently, I had been in a car accident and was rushed to the hospital. After Gary left, my mom showed me footage from the dash cam. I was speechless. Angry and sad, I couldn't help but cry. This felt like nothing but betrayal. I couldn't let this go unpunished. Determined to get back at those responsible, I got up. I'm Linda, 28 years old. Gary, who's 2 years my senior, and I have been married for a year. I used to work at a clothing store, and right after we got married, I became the store manager. Since then, life has been hectic. Even though we were newlyweds, time spent with Gary was rare. We had trouble aligning our schedules even when we were dating. Gary was an office worker with weekends off, while I worked shifts. But we nurtured our love, and eventually, he proposed to me. Nothing could make me happier than a proposal from the man I loved. After marriage, we rented a family-style condo, and I was excited about our future life together. Just when I was thinking about how we'd grown our family here, I got promoted. Managing the store turned out to be busier than I'd anticipated. I often wished the day had more than 30 hours. Our personal time was increasingly sacrificed. I was either filling in for part-timers who couldn't make it or just too busy. In addition, I couldn't keep up with household chores. But then Gary said, "I'll support you because you're working hard. I'm not great at it, but I'll help around the house where I can." Feeling both grateful and guilty, I broke down in tears. "I'm sorry. I'll get the hang of it soon. Please bear with me until then." He gently stroked my head, and I cried even more. In retrospect, that moment may have been the happiest in my life. When I told Mom about my struggles, she started cooking extra dishes and bringing them to our home. With the support from both Gary and my mom, I gave it my all at work. Even on my days off, I'd bring work home because the managerial tasks were never ending. Most of our time together was during dinner or a brief chat before bed. Then, one day, I finally had a weekend off. I was supposed to go to work today, but after seeing how hard I'd been pushing myself, my assistant manager offered to cover my shift. Even better, he said, "Take some time off to enjoy with your husband," and took over all my tasks for the day. Thrilled at the idea of spending quality time with Gary without having to work from home, I felt so alive. Peeking into the room to surprise Gary, I found him getting ready to go out. "Gary, you're heading somewhere? Looking quite fashionable, aren't you? Is that cologne I smell?" "Linda, weren't you supposed to be at work?" Gary seemed more surprised to see me than I'd anticipated, but I was too elated by my successful surprise to mind. "Guess what? I got the day off, so I was thinking we could go out somewhere together." Sorry. I thought you were working today, so I made plans with friends." "That's a bummer. I was looking forward to spending time with you." I sighed, realizing it was a last-minute day off for me, so it couldn't be helped. These days, Gary often goes out with his friends on weekends when I'm working. But still wanting to spend time with him, I decided to ask even if it meant getting turned down. "Hey, you hang out with your friends on weekends a lot. Can't you spend today with me and reschedule?" That's kinda tough. My friends also set aside time for me. We're married. We can always spend time together, right? But it's hard for us to find time together. Our days off never match. And since when did you, Gary, Mr. Jeans and T-shirt, start dressing so stylishly? Gary visibly flinches at my words. No, that's not it. A friend suggested a lunch spot with a dress code. That's why I chose this outfit. I narrow my eyes, giving Gary a suspicious look. Gary gives an awkward smile. Just then, Gary's phone rings. He glances at the screen and becomes flustered. I gotta go. Next time I know you're off, I promise I'll prioritize you, Linda. My friend's here to pick me up. Wait, Gary! Before I can say anything else, Gary leaves. Left behind, I decide to go shopping on my own after a long time. As I walk to the station to go to the mall, I can't help but think about Gary's odd behavior. Gary isn't the type to lie. His reaction earlier must mean he's having an affair. I do feel guilty for not spending time with him, but an affair? That's going too far. I'm so angry. I promise myself that when Gary gets home, I'll confront him about this. Just as I'm walking with this thought, a strong impact jolts my body. Before I understand what's happening, I lose consciousness. Linda! Linda! When I slowly wake up, I see Gary, his eyes filled with tears. Relieved to see me awake, Gary smiles. Thank God you're alive! My mind is still fuzzy, and I have no clue what's happened. All I know is that every part of me hurts, and my head is throbbing. Gary starts explaining the situation to me. Apparently, a car hit me, and I was rushed to the hospital by ambulance. By the time I regained consciousness, all the medical procedures had already been completed. Gary kept saying how relieved he was that I woke up, hinting that my life had been in danger had I not. Just then, the door to my hospital room opened, and a woman walked in. She looked down at me with a piercing glare, as if she were staring at her worst enemy, and clicked her tongue. Confused about who she was, and why I was being treated this way, Gary introduced her. This is Miss Juliana, the woman responsible for the accident. She couldn't come to apologize earlier because you were unconscious, and she was busy with the police and the insurance company. When I told her you had just woken up, she rushed over. Juliana glanced at me briefly, then looked away and spoke in a dispassionate tone. I deeply apologize for what happened. I'll come by again to apologize formally. She said that, turned on her heel, and left. But not before I heard her mutter under her breath. Is she still alive? Shit. For a moment, I thought I misheard, but she glared at me before closing the door, confirming my suspicion. I was gripped by an indescribable fear of Juliana and felt my blood run cold. What on earth had I done to deserve this? I had never met Juliana before and was completely lost. Later, Gary went home to prepare for my extended hospital stay. As I lay there, pondering why Miss Juliana had looked at me the way she did, my parents walked in. As soon as my mom saw me, she burst into tears and hugged me tightly. I'm so glad you're okay. Really, I am. I hugged her back just as tightly. My dad, too, was crying as he rested his hand on my shoulder. After a moment, my mom began to speak in a somber tone, her head bowed. I was about to bring you some food when I saw your accident right in front of me. More tears started to flow from her eyes. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Mom. Why are you apologizing? You did nothing wrong, Linda. I had blacked out at the time of the accident and had no memory of it. I woke up in a hospital bed. Though my body ached, I felt no fear about the accident itself. Compared to that, I could only imagine how terrified my mom must have been, witnessing the accident unfold before her eyes. Mom handed me the tablet, her voice shaking. Take a look at this, will you? What's this about? I looked at the tablet just like Mom told me to. It was footage from a dash cam in Mom's car. It looked like it was showing the scene of my accident. The color drained from my face as I watched the footage from my accident that Mom showed me. My body was sent flying, accompanied by the sound of impact. Blood was oozing out from me as I lay there, and Mom's cry of "Linda!" was even captured, tightening my chest. But the real shock came next. I was speechless as I watched the rest of the footage. Unbelievably, Gary rushed out from the car that hit me. Juliana, who had just visited me, got out of the driver's seat. Gary then hastily made a phone call. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Despite being happy for my well-being just moments ago, had Gary and his lover nearly killed me? Tears fell naturally from my eyes as I felt regret, sorrow, and fear, my mind in turmoil. Mom held me tightly and cried along with me. Dad clenched his fists, visibly trying to contain his anger. I was so shocked that for a while, all I could do was cry. After a while of crying with Mom, Gary walked into the hospital room having prepared my admission.
Liz, Tony, long time no see.
Gary greeted, but Mom didn't respond, loathing him.
You bastard!
Dad looked like he was about to throw a punch, but I grabbed his hand to stop him and shook my head. Dad looked frustrated, but lowered his fist. Gary looked puzzled at my parents' behavior, but I slowly removed myself from Mom's arms. Dad, Mom, I want to talk to Gary alone for a bit. But... Mom looked at me worriedly. It's fine. Can you both wait outside? Please. My parents nodded, glaring at Gary as they left the room.
Your parents must be really distressed since you got into an accident,
Gary said as he took a seat next to my bed. Listen, Gary, let's not drag this out. What's going on? I showed him the footage that Mom had shown me. In that instant, Gary's face turned pale and started trembling.
Where did you get this footage?
It seems like Mom witnessed the accident while she was on her way to our place. It's footage from her car's dash cam. So, is this what it looks like? That's you and that Juliana person, right? I stated calmly. Just a few moments ago, I was an emotional wreck. But when I spoke to Gary, I felt strangely calm.
So, this is,
You can't deny it. We have the footage. As soon as I said that, Gary quickly apologized on the spot.
No, you don't understand. Juliana did it all on her own. She started saying that because Linda is in the picture, we couldn't get married. Then you happened to walk by Linda, and Juliana just sped into you. Next thing I know, you're on the ground bleeding. I panicked thinking you might die. That's what happened, okay?
Gary seemed pretty shaken up too. Alright, I sort of get the accident part, but how long have you been involved with her? When I asked, glaring at him, Gary timidly answered without looking at me.
She's a coworker. She's been flirting with me since she joined the company. But I've been with you, Linda, so I turned her down. I swear. But about 3 months ago, we drank too much at a party. I was having problems with you, and one thing led to another, and we ended up at a hotel. We've been involved ever since.
I felt a surge of anger and nausea at Gary's story. It was a devastating blow to hear the details about his relationship with her. Ignoring my reaction, Gary continued.
But recently, Juliana started talking about marrying me. But I have no intention of breaking up with you, Linda, so I turned her down. I was even thinking of breaking it off with her. That's when Juliana lost it. And that's when you, Linda, happened to walk by.
I shivered at the sheer audacity of Juliana from Gary's story. She fully intended to kill me. I clutched my head, overwhelmed by it all.
Are you okay, Linda? Are you feeling sick?
Gary reached out to me, but I slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. I never want to see your face again.
But I'm sorry for the affair. I never thought Juliana would be this dangerous. And I still love you, Linda.
Then why did you have an affair in the first place? All of this happened because you kept cheating. How can I forgive you when you almost got me killed? I'll report this to the police, and you'll both get what you deserve. We're getting a divorce. Never show your face to me again. Upon hearing my shouting, my parents who were waiting outside rushed into the room. Dad pulled Gary off me and shoved him out of the room.
Never come near Linda again. I never want to see your face.
Dad slammed the door shut behind him. Gary kept banging on the door, begging for forgiveness, but I had the nurse escort him out. After I was discharged, I submitted the dashcam footage from Mom's car to the police. Later, Juliana was arrested. Even during questioning, she showed no remorse, lunging at the police and saying, "I did nothing wrong. What's wrong with trying to get rid of someone in my way?" In the end, Juliana was sentenced to 6 years in prison for attempted murder. Gary wasn't charged with any crime because he was just in the car with her and didn't instigate the act. However, I sought a divorce from Gary through my lawyer. At first, Gary was reluctant to divorce, but he eventually agreed. He knew he had put me in danger, and that his own infidelity was the reason for the split. When we divorced, I also demanded a settlement from Gary in court. I would have loved to sue Juliana as well, but with her in prison, I decided to place a hefty $30,000 demand on Gary. At first, Gary was shocked by the amount, but came to accept it as a penalty for hurting me both emotionally and physically. So, Gary and I successfully got divorced. News of the whole incident spread to Gary's company. Due to his involvement with Juliana, who was engaged in both infidelity and criminal activities, he was apparently fired. I don't know what he's up to these days, but I recently saw him getting reprimanded at a construction site. He looked worn out, so I guess he's going through some hard times. But that's not my concern anymore, so I moved on. As for me, I've rented a condo near work and continue to thrive as a store manager. Lately, my job's been running smoothly because I don't have home issues to worry about, and our store sales are increasing. For now, I'm content with avoiding relationships and continue to serve customers with a smile.